I want you to think about the last time something went wrong in your organization. Maybe it was a system outage, a data breach, a vendor that failed you, a compliance audit that didn't go the way you planned. Now ask yourself, did you see it coming? Because in most cases, if you're honest, the answer is yes. You knew there was a risk, you just didn't have a process for dealing with it. That's what this video is about. My name is Jeff Robertson. I've spent over 30 years in IT and cybersecurity, and I teach this at the university level. Today, I'm going to show you what risk management actually is, why most organizations do it wrong, and what it looks like when you get it right. Let's start with the definition, but not the textbook one. Risk management is the process of identifying what could go wrong, figuring out how bad it would be if it did, and then deciding what you're going to do about it. That's it. Now, here's what it is not. Risk management is not about eliminating all risk, just not possible. And if somebody's selling you that idea, walk away. Every organization's got risk, every single one. The question is whether you understand yours. Risk management gives you the language and the structure to make smart decisions about your risk, instead of just reacting when something breaks. There are 4 steps that every recognized framework, from NIST to ISO 27001, all of them come back to. You identify the risk, assess it, treat it, and monitor it over time. We're going to walk through each one. Step 1 is identification, and it's where most organizations have the biggest gap. You cannot manage a risk that you don't know about. I know it sounds obvious, but I've walked into organizations that couldn't tell me what their most critical systems were. They couldn't tell me what data they were collecting or where it lived. They couldn't even tell me who had access to what. You need to know your assets, your people, your systems, your data, your processes. You need to map out what threatens each one. We'll call those threats. We call the weaknesses that threats exploit vulnerabilities. And when a threat successfully exploits a vulnerability, that's a risk materializing. Think of it like a lock on a door. The lock, that's your control. Burglar, that's the threat. A cheap lock that can be picked in 30 seconds, that's the vulnerability. Remove any one of those 3 elements and the risk either disappears or drops significantly. Once you've identified your risks, you have to assess them. And the way you assess a risk comes down to 2 questions. How likely is this to happen? And if it does, how bad is it? This is a risk matrix. Every security framework uses some version of this. It's not complicated. It's a 2x2 grid. The likelihood on one axis and impact on the other. Risks that are highly likely and highly impactful, those are your critical risks. Those get addressed first, no debate. Risks that are unlikely and low impact, those might be risks you simply accept. Document them, move on. The stuff in the middle, though, it's where the real decisions happen. It's where leadership judgment comes in, and that's where experience matters. And that's why risk assessment is not something you do once and put into a drawer. Step 3 is treatment. Once you know what your risks are and how serious they are, what do you do about them? There are exactly 4 options. You can avoid it, stop doing the thing that creates the risk. If you're collecting data you don't need, stop collecting it. If you're running software you can't patch, get rid of it. You can reduce risk, put controls in place that make the risk less likely or less damaging. This is most of what your security program does. Firewalls, multi-factor authentication, training, monitoring. You're not eliminating the risk, you're driving it down to an acceptable level. You can transfer it, shift the financial impact to someone else. Cyber insurance is the most common example. The risk is still there, but if something happens, you're not bearing the full cost alone. Or you can accept it. You look at the risk, you weigh the cost of addressing it, and you decide, this is within our tolerance and we're going to live with it. It's a legitimate option, but, and this is critical, it has to be a conscious, documented decision. Accepting a risk because you didn't know it existed, it's not risk management. That's just hoping nothing goes wrong. I've seen both. They look very different when something breaks. But the 4th step is monitoring, and it's the one most programs drop after the first assessment. Risk's not static. Your organization changes. New systems get added, new vendors get onboarded, new regulations come into effect, and as always, new threat actors emerge. A risk assessment that was accurate 18 months ago may not reflect your reality today. A mature risk program includes regular review of your risk register, reassessment when major changes happen, and clear ownership. Someone's accountable for each risk, not just the security team in general. Here's the thing I want you to take away from this video more than anything else. Risk management is a business function. It's not just a security function. Your security team can identify risks, they can assess them, they can even recommend controls, but they cannot tell you what level of risk is acceptable to your organization. That's a leadership decision. The CISO can tell you, this vulnerability has a 70% probability of exploitation. Could expose customer records for 50,000 accounts. What the CISO cannot tell you is whether the cost of fixing it is worth it, given your budget, your regulatory obligations, your strategic priorities, and your risk appetite. That conversation has to happen at the executive level. Risk appetite is one of the most important things your leadership team can define, and most organizations never do it. If your leadership doesn't know what level of risk is acceptable, how's anybody making decisions about what to fix first? This is why organizations spend money on the wrong things. Not because they don't care about security, but because they don't have a risk-informed process driving those security investments. If your organization doesn't have a formal risk management program, or if you have one that hasn't been touched in years, here's where to start. 3 questions. First, what are your most critical assets? Not just your technologies, your data, your processes, your people. What would actually hurt if you lost it? Second, what are the most realistic threats to those assets given your industry? A healthcare organization faces different threats than a financial institution. Know your threat landscape. Third, what would be the impact if those threats actually materialized? Revenue loss, regulatory fines, reputational damage? Be specific. Those 3 questions, answered honestly, will tell you more about your actual risk posture than any security tool on the market. Risk management's not glamorous. There's no single tool that does it for you. It requires honest thinking, cross-functional input, and leadership commitment. But it's the foundation your entire security program is built on. Get it right, and every other investment you make in security becomes more effective. Skip it, and you're spending money on controls that may or may not be protecting what actually matters. I've seen both, and the difference is significant. If you want to go deeper on this, I've got courses that walk you through risk management from the ground up. The link's in the description. And if this was useful, subscribe. I post new content every week. See you in the next one.